the building of the second base of Mikdash, 44 years after the story of Purim, the end of Purim. Purim ended in 3404 or 3405, depending on how you. The second base of Mikdash was built in the year 3408. Took 4 years to build it, but it started in 3408. 40 years later, there was a whole debate in front of Alexander the Great, who, by the way, realized the world is round. So Tosfos in Tractate of Avodah page 10, who says that he actually was able to fly. How is interesting that we don't know exactly how, but he was able to fly, and he went around the world and realized that the world is round. Came to that conclusion. He was a Moshel Bekipa. This Alexander the Great, the Macedonian, was a Greek leader, but he also ruled over many other countries. In fact, he's called a monarch, a leader of the entire globe. One of the 10 kings, alongside with King Solomon, Shlomo Melech, were leaders of not just one or two countries, but vast amounts of countries. And he loved debates. Here we have a story where a Gvia ben Sisa was not a rabbi. He says, let me debate them. You know, it's below your dignity, rabbis, to debate with these people. If I lose, no big deal. And if I win, it'll be a big Kiddush Hashem. That's the story that we're going to learn today. Prior to that, there's a whole lengthy discussion about the belief in Tchias HaMesim. I'm not going to bring all of that. It's a lengthy discussion. Mara brings 4 or 5 stories. I'll bring just one story, which involves, actually maybe 2, which involves the same individual, Gvia ben Sisa, and another story which involves the daughter of a Caesar who questioned and didn't believe that there could be Tchias HaMesim. And Rabbi Gamliel was the one who was charged of this question. Instead of him answering, the daughter of this Caesar says, let me answer, Rabbi, I'll take care of that question. I believe in the resurrection of the dead. And the question is asked, why did she intervene? Why, when she was such a big tzaddikus, she decided that she believed, why did she intervene and not want Rabbi Gamliel to answer? What is the reason for it? So we'll get there. Before we get to that, I want to just mention this week's parsha. It's a trivia question. Tell me what is special about this week's parsha that is different from all the parshas of the Torah. If anyone gets this right, I will eat my hat without a bracha. I don't believe anyone knows the answer. All right. Any idea of what is so special about, unique and different? I wouldn't say special, but just different and unique about this parsha. So I'll answer the question by asking you another question. How many chumashim do we have? We have gracious. How many do we have? Wrong. How many chumashim do we have? How many 5? Gracious, Shmos, by Yikra, by Midbar, Dvarim, right? Wrong. Right, but not all completely right. By Midbar is divided into 3. From the beginning of Bamidbar until today's Chitas, Vayehi ben Soah Ha'aron, Vayomer Moshe, when the Torah is taken out, we say these two verses. And when the Aaron traveled, Hashem was told, Kuma Hashem, rise, let all your enemies be dispersed. All those that are enemies of the Jews are enemies of God. These 2 psukim is read when the Torah is taken out, on Shabbos or on Monday or on Thursday. And these 2 psukim constitute an entire Chumash, believe it or not. So there's actually in this week's parsha not just one Sedra. From the beginning of Bamidbar, beginning of Bahaloscha, beginning of this week's parsha, until we get to Shlishi, is the 4th Chumash. The 2 psukim, Vayiben Soah Ha'aron, constitutes an entire Chumash. That's Chumash number 5. Chumash means 5th. And from after those 2 psukim until the end of the entire Bamidbar is the 6th Chumash. And Devarim is number 7. And it's interesting that the parsha begins with the lighting of the candle of the candelabra, the menorah, which has 7 branches. So in the Sedra that has 7 branches, we are told, believe it or not, that a chumash that only has 2 verses, 85 letters total, 85 letters, constitutes an entire chumash. This is something you probably didn't hear of. No, so I'm letting you know. I couldn't hold myself back. I'm letting you know something that's new. It's an interesting halacha. The Sefer Torah is in danger of being burnt. It's stuck in a fire. Can you take it out on Shabbos? Can you save it from a fire? So there's halachas about that. If it's a Sefer Torah is kosher, yes. If a Sefer Torah is possible, also yes. But if a Sefer Torah does not have more than 85 letters, it's not, or doesn't have, it has less. It has less than 85 letters. 85 again is the amount of letters found in Vayi ben Soah Ha'aron, which, as I just said before, constitutes an entire Chumash. So if you have a scroll, a Torah scroll that somehow got damaged, and what's only left, the only part that's left over are 84 letters, it does not warrant saving it from a fire on Shabbos. Interesting halakha. That's from Tractate Shabbos. Now, take a look at your Gemara. First page, of course, is the original. What does it say here? Sanhedrin. It's Tractate Sanhedrin. What does Sanhedrin actually mean? Anyone know? Sanhedrin? Huh? What you got? Are you afraid of? You afraid to cook? I don't bite. Huh? I gave them all out. Of course, yeah. Judicial system, okay. And there are three levels of judicial system. There's a court of 3, a court of 23, and a court of 71. 3 is for any even monetary laws. 3 is enough. For laws of life that pertain to life and death situations, like if you want to execute a murderer, you'd have to have a court of 23. And for unusual situations that affect all of Klal Yisrael, you need 70. You need the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, Sanhedrin Gedola, would be for certain issues, like, for example, whether we should go to war or not, or expand the territory of Israel, and many other examples that affect all of Klal Yisrael. You need the Supreme Court. The word Sanhedrin, I want to let you know, Sanhedrin actually it's an abbreviation of 3 words. San, even though it's spelled with a samach nun, san, sounds like the word sinna, hatred. Who are qualified to be judges in the Sanhedrin, the judicial system? Those that hate what? Hadr, Sanhedr, Heder. Heder means those that show favoritism. They hate the idea of showing favoritism and receiving bribes, being favored to one party over another, one litigant over another. People that hate the idea of bribery and showing favoritism, Sanhedrin. San, Soneh, they hate. Heder, they hate showing nicety or favoritism to a certain group. In judgment. When it comes to judgment, they want to be as objective as possible. People that hate this, they are the Sanhedrin. They are qualified to be judges. So in this Masechta, there is a last chapter in the last chapter in this tractate, in this Masechet Sanhedrin, is all about who will have the world to come, who will be Zoicha, who will be privileged to have Chias HaMesim, and it's everyone with a few exceptions. In fact, the Rabbi in one of his letters says that even the few exceptions doesn't mean literally they won't have a Chias HaMesim. It means they won't rise with the same body they lived here. Their soul will still live on in a new body, not the same body that they live in this world. But everyone else, besides those few exceptions, will merit not just Chias HaMesim, but Chias HaMesim with the exact same body they passed away with. The person will get up, will rise, and there's an interesting question asked by Cleopatra. The Gemara brings the story with Cleopatra, was the name of all the queens in those days. Cleopatra, she asked the rabbi when they went, I believe in Chias HaMesim, I believe in the resurrection. I just want to know, will they get up unclothed, not without their clothes on, and then later on, or will they be dressed with their clothes on? And what type of clothes? And he answered, he brought proofs that they will actually rise with their clothes, the same clothes, not with shrouds, but with the same clothing that they were buried with. That was his answer. Then the Gemara talks about the story with the daughter of Rabbi Gamliel, the daughter of the Caesar, who approached Rabbi Gamliel with the question, how could you believe in Chias HaMesim? But the Gemara is going to show, there are a lot of changes here. Before we get to the part of Eretz Yisrael, Gemara goes through a whole lengthy discussion that Chias HaMesim is not so hard to believe. It actually makes more sense than the birth of a child, than the formation of a little baby from a sperm, a tiny little sperm. It's a much bigger miracle than Chias HaMesim. Yes. Yeah, but yet that's how we're buried. Just like you could ask, how do we rise from the dead? Hashem will afford us with clothing before we rise. Should be uncomfortable in the rising. The question is asked: is it shrouds or is it the real clothing? Is it the shroud that you were buried with, or actually real clothing? And the conclusion by most is that it's the actual clothing that you have to unclothing, normal clothing that you would normally wear. That's part of the miracle. But the Gemara tries to show it's not such a miracle. If you believe it's a miracle, then you should go wild with the miracle of every baby being formed Formation of a baby from what? From a tiny sperm, which makes no sense. From nothing to something is a greater miracle than from something that once was. If nothing, if that which wasn't was, then that which was once upon a time should certainly be able to be again. It's the 13th principle of faith, but you don't have to have that much faith for it, by the way. Because if you see, people take it for granted. As I told you once before, my obstetrician, the one who delivered my own children, would always scream out, "Oh, you're not Jewish." Very nice person, friendly, sociable doctor. He would always scream out, "Oh, another miracle." He would scream out as he would deliver the baby. Another. He understood what a miracle it is, what can go wrong and what doesn't go wrong. And he would always scream out, "Mazel tov," in Hebrew, "another miracle." And he told me that almost 100% of all the doctors, that obstetricians, are not just believers in God, are staunch believers in God because of what they see on a daily basis. And the Gemara brings us, if what Hashem can do in the creation and bringing something into existence from nothing, from a tipos rucha, seminal drop, it's almost that, which has billions of spermatome, and then one of them just has to hit, and that's it, and a baby is formed. Take it for granted. Hashem shows us miracles every single day. What are you so excited? What are you so wowed about Chesed HaMesim and hard to believe? Okay, let's take a look at the Gemara. Tell you which page I want to look at. Not the first page, of course, is the original. So look at the second page. Well, I'm sorry, the first English page. I will start with there's a whole bunch of exchanges. There are about 5 exchanges between heretics and various different people to the rabbis. How could you believe in Chesed HaMesim? And here comes, I'm not going to start from the first, we'll start from the fourth, but I want to get to the Eretz Yisrael part. Amalei Kesel Rabbi Gamliel. You have that part? On the bottom of the right side. Here. It's a short page. On the bottom of the right side of page 90b5. It's your first page. Your first. Got it? Amalei Kesar. Kesar is a Caesar. Amalei Kesel Rabbi Gamliel. Means said. Caesar said to Rabbi Gamliel, one of the great Tanoim, Mishnah sages, Amritu, you say that the dead will live again. How can this be? Hahava Afra, they have become dust, disintegrated. Why they become dust? The Afra Mika Chaye, and can dust come alive? That was the question. Omer Le Brate. So instead of Rabbi Gamliel responding, she didn't let him respond. Who is she? His daughter. Who's his daughter? His who? Rabbi Gamliel's daughter or the Caesar's daughter? So Rashi said the Caesar's daughter, the non-Jewish girl. She interjected and did not allow Rabbi Gamliel to have to answer. So explain why. Amalei Barate, Caesar's daughter said to Rabbi Gamliel, Shavke, Rabbi, leave him be. You don't have to bother. I'll answer for him. But Anna Mahadrana, and I will answer him for you. She then turned to her father and said, with her father, Shnei Yotzim Yadbirenu. We have, suppose there were 2 potters, people forming pots in our city. Echad Yotzim min Hamayim, one who fashions pottery out of water. Wow. But Echad Yotzim min Hatit, and one who fashions pottery out of clay. Let me ask you, who's the big champion here? Eza Mehem Meshubach. Which one of them would you say is superior and has powers that are is more talented than the other? Armallah, he replied to her, Caesar replied to her, well, obviously, the one who fashions pottery out of water. Armallah, he says to them, Min hamayim sar, by the same token, if God fashions human beings out of water, min hatit lo kol shekain, is it not certain that he can fashion them out of clay, which is a lot more of an existent substance than tiny sperm, which is barely anything? If he can create a person, a body of flesh like clay, from mayim, from that sperm, from that seminal drop, then for sure he can do so from clay, from dust. That was her response. Why did you respond? Why didn't you let Rabbi Gamliel respond? So one of the commentaries, Ben Yehoyada, answers the Ben Ish Chai, famous Ben Ish Chai, the Sephardic sage, he lived not too long ago. He says, I think this is my answer. He says, because she didn't want Rabbi Gamliel to give an answer which would exclude non-Jews from the resurrection. She believed in the resurrection, but she wanted it to be something that's so rational and so simple, just like non-Jews live, they'll also live again. If God created non-Jewish people as well as Jewish people, then he would obviously resurrect them as well. She didn't want Rabbi Gamliel to give an answer that might exclude the non-Jews, which would exclude her. That's one answer. Another answer is a very interesting answer, which shows that she's on a higher level and she has a certain feeling of affection to Jewish people. What she said was, why are you, the father wasn't asking about Chesed HaMesim, he was asking, why are you publicizing it? I believe that many of your great sages will believe in that and it won't affect them. But what about the simple Jews? When they hear it, when the simple Jews hear such nonsense in their mind, they're going to lose belief in everything. We believe in the resurrection of the dead? If that's the case, then the whole thing is, I don't believe in anything now. I'm not going to keep Shabbos now. So you're making the simple people lose their faith. So he said, wait a second, that's not true. That's not true. It's obvious. It's logical. Kal v'chomer, oratory. Kal v'chomer. You don't need to be a sage to believe in this. You can be a simple Jew. And I believe that they're simple, but they're irrational, and they'll take it. No reason to fear that the Jewish people who are simple are going to lose their belief in the mitzvos if they hear such a thing. That's another explanation as to why she responded. Okay. The Gemara continues, and I'm going to skip. Let's get to the next side of the page, on the same page, but the bottom of the right side. The Gemara records additional debates with enemies of the Jews and Jewish belief. I'm skipping some interesting stuff here, but I want to get to the part that deals with Eretz Yisrael. But there's one more story before that. Here's a story with Gevia ben Sisa. You ever hear of him? Anyone ever hear of him? No. Even Shoshana didn't hear of him? He was not a rabbi, and he was looked upon. He was extremely tall. Some say he was a Kohen who actually worked in the Beis Hamikdash, and some say he was a Levi who guarded one of the guards. You have to have 21 guards, 18 Levim and 3 Kohanim, and he was a guard. You can see why, because he was powerful. He looked tall and strong, but he was bent over like crazy. He was mamish like, like this. His whole back was injured and damaged. But he was very smart. He had common sense, and he was very smart and knew how to be a good debater. So the certain sectarian, this Apikoros, says to this fellow called Gevia ben Sisa, that's his name. Woe to you, O sinners! For you say that the dead will live. And it's ridiculous. Why would we call them sinners? Because you're saying ridiculous things and you're causing many Jews to stop believing. But if you believe that a Jew doesn't keep mitzvos as a Russia, well, you're a Russia because you're spreading crazy nonsense with this Chesed HaMesim belief. And as a result, you're causing your own people who are simple not to continue believing. That's what he said. And the reason why he said that is like this. He had his Kal v'chomer. The Amritu Meisei Chayin, ridiculous. The Chayin Meisei, even if the living eventually die, death takes over. The last resort is the last thing that happens to a person is death. If a person's life ends up in death, is it credible that the dead will live? Everyone's dying to get there. Those that are alive die, so those that are dead will live again. That was his logic. Our Malay, Zagvia said to him, you're the one who should be called sinners. Woe to you, Mr. Apikoros, O sinners. The Amritum may say lo chayim, for you say that the dead will not live. And he said, the lo hava chaye, if even the non-existent come to life, the hava chaye, those that already existed, is it not all the more possible that those who once lived will live again? And he called him evil. Why did he call him an evil person? Because if you believe there's no Tchias HaMesim, you know what that means? That our whole avoda with our neshama in our body is a waste. The body is going to die. And it's going to turn into and disintegrate. So what's the whole idea of trying to elevate our body and elevate the body into something holy by doing a mitzvah with the different parts of our body, if the end result will be the body will decay and deteriorate and will never live again. So you're not just questioning the third thing, you're questioning the whole reason as to why we should do mitzvahs. What are we accomplishing? The waste. You're playing with garbage. You're elevating garbage because then you're doing the body is going to deteriorate and rot and decay. So by not believing in Chesed HaMesim, you're the Russia, he says. And if it's hard to believe, it's not hard to believe with the preceding Kal v'chomer. How do you say Kal v'chomer in English? Oratory. oratory. You know what Kal V'chomer means? You know, everyone know what Kal V'chomer is? Kal V'chomer. If what's simple is so difficult, then what's difficult should certainly be difficult. Like, if an 8th grader can't understand the text of the Gemara, then for sure a 1st grader can't understand the text of the Gemara. The idea, Kal V'chomer, if what's easy is not coming easy, then what's hard, what's difficult is for sure going to be out of the question. Okay. This is the Kal V'chomer. Are you bored? Are you bored? There's never feedback here. Boys at least fall asleep. I know they're not. There's like no. Show something. I'm not going to jump up and scream and dance. That's Okay. I don't like talking to walls. That's one I don't like. Falling asleep is even worse. But you have to show that you're finished. The interesting Gemara, it's a well-known Gemara, and I want you to get enjoy it. Okay. The guy by Amalek, the sectarian, retorted, he got angry. How dare you call me an evil person? How dare you say Chayovaya, that I am a Russia, for not believing? How dare you say that? Hayafta Karisli, you call me sinners? You know what? If as you say, there will be Chesamesim and I'll get up. If I were to get up, I will arise after I die. I will kick you so hard, I will straighten out your back. I will straighten out your hump. Yeah, I said that's going to happen. Well, that's how much I believe in the fact that I will rise. On Marley, so he says, the Gabir says to him, wow, if you do that, I'll thank you. Imata Osakain, Rofe Umantikora, you will be called a skilled doctor, because doctors always, try to cure a person and they end up with side effects. It's a very slow process, and a person does not heal just like that. But if you can heal me just like that with one little kick and kick my crooked back into becoming straight again, I will, you know what? If that happens, then you know what? I take back. You're not a bad person, because only good things happen for good people. So if you can make that happen, I'll pick my hat off to you. And I will say, I take back what I said about you, and I will admit that you are a virtuous person. If you do that, you will be called a skilled doctor and command a large fee for your medical services. There are a lot of different, commentary on this piece here, but I'll skip that part. Okay, now we go to the Gemara. Now the Gemara brings a different date. I told you that on 25th of Sivan is when the story happened. It was the year of Shemitah. Now Alexander Mukdam, Alexander the Great, how long did he reign for? How long was he a king for? 6 years. That's it. From 3442 to 3448. This happened 3448. It was a sabbatical year, the year of Shemitah, where you can't plant, you can't plow, and it's a hard year. The non-Jews are allowed to plow. If they plow and plant it, then no problem. But you can't plant yourself if it's a Shnas Shemitah. This year, 3448, was a sabbatical year. Exactly 1,000 years after the giving of the Torah. Torah was given in 2448. This is 3448. Again, how many years after Purim? Purim was 3404. Beis Hamikdash was built in 3408. We're talking about less than 40 years. Less than 40 years after Purim. The beginning of a tenure in the second Beis Hamikdash. I wanted to ask you, when was the expulsion and Golus of the 10 tribes? You know when that happened? 200 years earlier. 200 years earlier was when Sancheriv fell Jewish people, 10 tribes, and they were dispersed. Today, we don't even know where they are. And I'll soon I'll explain why I just mentioned that if I have time. But we'll get there. Okay, so here the Gemara gives a different date. The known date is Chav Hei Sivan, but here the Gemara is going to say that the story that happened was on Chav Daled Nisan. And the Rebbe says that which one is more accurate? What the Gemara says, or what it said elsewhere? Where is that elsewhere? Called Megillas Tainitz. In those days, nothing was put into writing. Everything was orally. Everything you had to memorize, with the exception of a Megillah. Megillah means a scroll that was written, giving all through history, all the days historically that miracles happened to the Jewish people, to be celebrated by not being allowed to fast, and some of them not being allowed to eulogize. Days that we don't even know about today. Who knows about Chav Hei Sivan? Who knows about Chaf Teves, another miracle would happen. After the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, all these happy days were nullified, no longer celebrated, except for Purim and Hanukkah. But all the other days that miracles happened were no longer considered. Maybe when Mashiach will come, they'll again be special days. But as long as we have lost the Beis Hamikdash, we don't consider those days to be anything. Now, one of those days is Chaf Hey Sivan, but here the Gemara says Chaf Daled Nisan. So the episode like this. But Yivas Tainus goes by sections. Every month is a different chapter. Chapter Nisan, chapter Ir, chapter Sivan. There it says in chapter 3, chapter Sivan, on the 25th day, the following story that we're going to learn happened. And here it says 24th of Nisan. It's very easy to have a Chaf Daled Nisan by mistake. A Chaf Hey Sivan turned into Chaf Daled Nisan. Sivan and Nisan are spelled pretty similar. Take a look at the word Nisan, Sivan. Doesn't take much to turn Sivan into a mistake and think it says Nisan. And Chav Daled, Chav Hey rather, could easily be turned into Chav Daled. So it makes sense that the mistake was our Gemara, not Megillas Tainus, where instead of Chav Hey Sivan, it's written Chav Daled Nisan. But to say that chapter 3 of Megillas Tainus inserted a miracle that belongs in a different month, that's crazy. So it makes more sense to say the date the Gemara is given here is not accurate. But anyway, let's see the story. The rabbis taught in the Brisa, the Esrim, the Arba, ben Nisan, on the 24th day of Nisan, again, it really happened on the 25th day of Sivan, Isnatilu di Musnai mi Yehuda Mishralayim. The challengers were removed from Judea and from Jerusalem. What's the story? Yishabo b'nei Africa Lodin in Yisrael, Lifnei Alexandrus Mokdon, when the Africans came to contend with the Jews before Alexander the Macedonian, who loved debates. They said to him, Eretz Canaan Shalonahu. The Africans said to him that the land of Canaan is rightfully ours. It's called Canaan. Who is Canaan, by the way? One of the sons of Ham. It's called Eretz Canaan. Never called Eretz Yisrael Chumash. It's always called Eretz Canaan. They knew that Hashem gave it to the Jewish people, but they believed, yeah, he gave it to the Jews as long as they're observing Torah. Once the Jews stop observing the Torah, it's back to us again. The best proof is it's still referred to as the land of Canaan, even after the Jews conquered it. You know why? Because it's only conditionary. The fact that Eretz Yisrael belongs to us, these non-Jews claim, is proof that as long as you don't keep the mitzvah, you're not observant, goodbye. We have the right over it, and you have no right. That's what they believe. So they claimed Eretz Canaan is theirs, and they brought a proof from Chumash. The Ksiv, Eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan, meaning the land of Israel, which is called the land of Canaan, will set up to its borders, where the Torah goes into detail exactly where all the borders of Eretz Yisrael is, and it refers to this land as the land of Canaan. And who is Canaan? Canaan avuhom tahanu intrahavu. And the Bnei Chum were saying, Bnei Africans were saying that Canaan was the ancestor of these very people, meaning us, standing before you, we the Africans. Therefore, Israel are a bunch of thieves. So Via Ben Sisa tells the rabbis, no, answer. Give me permission. So Gviya Bem Sisa, I'm sorry, I skipped. Gviya Bem Sisa l'chachamim. Whereupon Gviya Bem Sisa said to the rabbis, you know what? Let me argue it out with them. Tnuli b'shus. Give me permission, rabbis. Ve'elech ve'odani mohem lifnei Alexander's Mokdon. I will go and debate them before Alexander the Macedonian. Even if they defeat me in the debate, Amru, it will be said, big deal. Who did you debate against, anyways? You only debated and won the debate with an ordinary, simple person, not a rabbi. And if I will become victorious, if I will remain as a victory, if the victory will be on my side, Imrulahem, say to them, the Torah of Moses, the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu has defeated you. In other words, there's very little to lose and a lot to gain by letting me fight it out. They gave him permission. They warned him, you better be careful. And he said, no problem. I have full belief, full trust that I will win this debate. Nasan Rashus, they gave him permission. And he went and debated with the Africans. Where do you bring proof? How do you know that the land of Canaan is the land of Canaan? Where does it say that? I'm alone, man. Torah. I said, your Torah. What do you mean? How do I know? You believe in the Torah. So it's there. Armalahan. Oh, you believe in the Torah? That's nice to hear. I'll also bring you from the Torah. Now that I know you believe in it, I'm not going to use any other, secular sources. I'm going to bring my proof from the very Torah that you brought. Shenamar, and it says, Vayomer Orur Canaan, Eved Avodim Eliyav. It's stated in the Torah that Noach said to his accursed son, he said, Canaan shall be cursed. A slave of slaves shall be to his brothers. Now, what's the status of a slave? A slave has no identity of his own. It's like a piece of property. So whatever a slave owns, master owns. If you see in the words of the Chumash that Noach, the father, cursed his sons and said, you are not my son. You're not an heir. You no longer have any rights. You are the property of my other sons. The Hainu, who are the other sons? Yefes and Shem. Goodbye. So by virtue of it being your land, it's our land. Thank you for believing in the Torah. If you wouldn't believe in the Torah, I'd have to look for secular sources. But now that you believe in the Torah, here's a pasuk. If a father, Noach, has the power and the right to consider his child, Cham and Canaan, actually, grandchild, to be considered a slave to all his brothers and descendants of his brothers, then for all generations to come, that's your status. A slave acquires property. To whom belongs the slave and to whom belongs the property? Certainly to the master. Since your ancestor Canaan was a slave of Shem and Japheth, the land of Canaan belongs to us, the descendants of Shem. Now, that's a problem. You could say, Sisa put his foot in his mouth. Why do you think that's a dangerous answer to give? Who was Alexander? Descended from which? Who was the great grandfather of Alexander? Not from Chum, not from Shem, but from Yepes. Based on what he just said, what Greenberg just said, part of Eretz Yisrael should belong to Alexander. So that's why Greenberg was smart, and he added one more thing. Not only whatever you own is ours, but all these years that you didn't serve us below oath, and not only that, but it is now many years that you have not served us when you were supposed to. So you have to pay us back. And because you didn't pay back, I want that money to go to Alexander. We'll take Eretz Yisrael. Let Alexander get all the money, which is quite a bit, all these years, hundreds of years that you didn't serve, either one of us. So I'm Michael. The Jews are Michael. We don't care about the money. We care about Eretz Yisrael. And Alexander should take the money. Plus the land. You come from Africa. Give him that land. Instead of all the money, all the services that you missed out on. Well, so many years went by, you haven't served us. Alexander is Malka, so Alexander tells him back. That's a good answer. What's your rebuttal? What do you guys answer to that? He loved debates. One thing I was known for. He loved to be the one the judge debating. So they answered, give us 3 days to think it over. I want a response. On Merlot, they said to Alexander, give us 3 days time to prepare a reply. Nasalan, he gave them the 3 days time. Botku, they searched and searched and searched, but did not find an adequate answer. Meyad, realizing that their untenable position in the eyes of Alexander is that he doesn't like when you bother him and lose a debate. You lose a debate, you lose your head. You're a head shorter. So they ran for their lives, ran away, and let Eretz Yisrael, let the land of Israel, which was cultivated in the year of Shemitah, and all the Jews can enjoy the fruits of what grew on that year's land, which they would not ordinarily do so because it was Shemitah that year. That was the miracle that happened on the 25th of Sivan. Miyad Baruchu v'heinichu savisein k'shein zruos. They left their fields and their vineyards as they were, but also shana shviyas haisa. Now, the next story also happened the same exact day. It could not have happened on a different Shemitah. As I said before, how long did Alexander reign for? Only 6 years. He did not live through a second Shemitah. So if this happened on Shemitah, the story the Gemara is going to bring another story with a different group of Goyim, had to have happened on that very same year. Did it happen on the very same day? It would seem like. And therefore, many say that when it says Shuv Pamachas, another story, another time, It really doesn't mean another time. Many people don't have these words in their text. But anyways, Bo'u b'nei Mitzrayim, the Egyptians now came. And we'll soon see why the Egyptians had to wait who would win the debate between the Africans and the Jews. And if the Jews win the debate, now the Egyptians can come with their claim. If the Africans would have won the debate, Egyptians would not be able to claim it. That's why they waited. The Egyptians waited online. Let's see who wins the debate with the B'nai Africa. They believe the Jews are good in debating. Famous Ramban, Nachmani was the best debater. Jews never lost a debate, Klaus. We never lost a debate with non-Jews. We always win debates because we're smarter. So anyways, hello? Another time. The Egyptians came, we're almost finished, to contend with the Jews before Alexander the Macedonian. The Egyptians said to him, now what's their claim? Why would Israel belong to the Egyptians? It's not called Eretz Mitzrayim, it's called Eretz Canaan. What's their claim? Claim to fame. What do you think? Anyone have an idea? Why would they claim Eretz Israel as theirs? And it's based on a pasuk in Chumash. Can't figure that one out, right? The answer is, you stole our money. You borrowed, we gave you money. It was a loan. And you stole, you ripped us off, never gave it back to us. Quite a bit. Tremendous resources of diamonds and gold and silver and clothing. But we're taking your land as a collateral. When you pay us back, we'll let you have your land. It's a lot of money that you stole from us. Millions. But you can only claim, that claim would not exist if the B'nai Africa would have won the debate. So we have to make sure that this belongs to the Jews. And once it belongs to the Jews, now they have a good claim. Let's see it inside. Let's see this story inside. They claim that it says in Chumash, God gave the race of the nation in the eyes of the Egyptians, and they were willing to lend them. But lend, not give for, it wasn't a gift. Therefore, look at the next few words. Give us the silver and gold that you took from us. Whereupon Gviya said to the rabbi, to the sages, let me fight it out. I won the first debate. And I will go and debate them before Alexander. If they defeat me in the debate, to say to them, big deal. Who did you win over anyways? An ordinary guy you won the debate was defeated. That's it. And if I win the war, it won't be just me, it'll be Torah's Moshe that is victorious. Say to them, the Torah of Moshe, our teacher, has defeated you. They gave him reshus, the sages gave him permission, he went on and defeated the Egyptians, and debated with the Egyptians. And he says to them, how do you know? Where do you get this proof that we stole your money? I just said from the Torah. Oh, you believe in the Torah? Fine. I will also bring you proof only from the Torah. It says in the Chumash, the amount of years the Jews were in Mitzrayim was 430 years. Okay, so for 130 years we were in Egypt. We served you for no good reason. We weren't supposed to be your slave. You tortured us. Let me ask you a question. What are the wages for 600,000 people for 430 years to be tortured? What would you take? A lot more than what we took from you. So if anything, you owe us. Get lost, get out of our land. You have no right to be there, no collateral. You owe us. Torah says that. You believe in the Torah. You brought proof. I'll bring you a proof in the Torah if you're wrong. Why 430 years? Wasn't it less? How long were they in Egypt? No one knows? Huh? I can't hear. 410. How many years were they tortured? 86. Well, here's the deal. So 430 is 5 times as much as 86. Do the math. 5 times 86 is 430. So why did he exaggerate? Not 430 years, it's only 86 years of torture. The answer is, how many Jews were there? How many Jews left Mitzrayim and how many Jews were tortured? Much more than 600,000. Because the ones that left were only 1/5. 4/5 of the Jews remained in Mitzrayim. Huh? They died. Yeah, but they were tortured till then. They died in kosher. They didn't want to leave, but they still were part of the whole process of slavery. They were tortured too. So yeah, we exaggerate on the amount of years, but we underestimated the amount of people. 5 times 86 is 430. But we make that up with more Jews. So it's equal. It equals out. You take a look at the bottom of the page, it'll give that calculation. Footnote 28. When I just said now, look at footnote 28, you'll see that answer. Anyways, so what was there? So Alexander said, nice answer. What do you guys answer? They couldn't answer. Give us 3 days. 3 days went by. They searched. They couldn't find any proper rebuttal. They fled for their lives. And Eretz Yisrael once more on that same year. They also planted. They also took portions of Israel, different cities maybe, that they inhabited. And through them, we had another city or another few cities that were planted and plowed, cultivated during the year of Shemitah, and we enjoyed the fruits of their work. That's the second story. Then goes the third story with the Bnei Yishmael of the Arabs. And they also lost. What was their claim? This partnership. Shmuel and Yitzchak were brothers. In fact, Shmuel was the older brother. And then the Bnei Keturah, they were the sons of Hagar. Hagar was no longer, Tivcha. She was not a maidservant. Avram married her. She must have been a Baal Shuvah. They both came together. So they bring proof that we should at least have half, if not more, of the land of Israel. Yes, you also deserve, but we also deserve. Why are you taking the whole land for yourself? And the answer was, there's a pasuk in Chumash that says that God, that Avraham Avinu gave special gifts. He gave everything to Yitzchak, but he gave special kinds of gifts to the Bnei Keturah, which also include the Bnei Yishmael. And they are, what were they? Powers of sorcery. Powers to fight off sorcery. Fight off any kind of effect coming from witchcraft. That's what he gave him, indicating that nothing more. He didn't give him anything else but that. Because every other part of the possessions of Abraham was all given to Yitzchak. That's what the pasuk says. So they all lost the debate. This is the end of the story here. It's connected with the parsha that is read in Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael, now they read the parsha of the spies. We're 1 week behind. You know why? Because we had 2 days Yom Tov. We had Friday and Shabbos at Shavuos. So whenever Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, we don't read the regular Sedra. We read a special laning. But by then, it's only 1 day Yom Tov. Friday was Shavuos. Shabbos is the day after Shavuos. So they go back to reading Parshas Naso. We only read Parshas Naso last week. They already read Parshas Naso on the 2nd day of Shavuos. So while we're a week ahead now, we're in Baaloscha, they're in Shlach. And Shlach is all about the spies. So next week is, for us, it's Shlach. Chav Hey Sivan is Wednesday of next week when this actual story happened. I wanted to mention about the Kusian Samaritans, who they are, and I'll time for it. Next Friday, the last Gemara share, so I'm going to continue with all the things that we skipped with the Kiss and Mason stories, very, very smiley, and give a whole class about who are the Samaritans, the history of the Samaritans. You can go Google it, but there's some crazy things over there. Rabbi Google is not always accurate 100%. So I'm going to show you from what the status of Kusim from Torah sources, what exactly. And then bring a very powerful story. And this one last thing. Shimon HaTzadik respected the Jewish people. You know why? Alexander Mukden respected the Jewish people, and it's because of a person named Shimon HaTzadik, who lived in his days. Shimon HaTzadik was the last of the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah, the men of Great Assembly. And Alexander bowed before he saw him. He bowed, he went off his horse and bowed on the ground. Yeah, I know. What did he say? He said, the Kusim are complaining, why are you bowing for this guy? Jews are lowlives. They want to destroy. They hate you. Because really, I don't believe that. Whenever I fight wars, the image of some angel looking just like him appears to me, and I win all my battles. So this man is an angelic person, he's an angel. That's what he said to the Kusian who tried to, the whole story, I'll say that to mother, that tractate Yuma 69b. Yom Yom Kippur. So we'll leave that for next week, the last Friday of the year. The next Tuesday is the next to the last Tuesday, I believe, and Tuesday after that is the last class. Period. For me at least. I'm not actually the last day of school. It's not this coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. So that would be Parshas Korach. Um, you want to end, or you didn't have any classes, I know you learned about it.
Remember the Atlanta?
Huh? What?
When will the practice Atlanta? But is that not part of this?
Good question. At the end of Namidbar, Matis Masay, we'll be reading two, they'll be reading only one. So, by the way, the longest laning of the whole year, 244 psukim. It's 70 psukim longer than the longest one single sedra. 244 psukim. I have to read it, so I know how hard it is. And it has a musical sound. It only shows up once in the entire Torah. I'm not going to sing it for you. But there's one truck there called Karnei Farah, Yerav Vayoma Karnei Farah. It shows up only once. They come together. These two never show up. And when they do show up, only once, one is, they show up together. It's a I get there, maybe next week I'll sing it for you. It's a very, very unusual. If you hear it, don't. But most of the people, most of the languages I hear, just, but we don't have a tradition of exactly how to read it. But I received the tradition from my father, how to lay those two very usual sounds, musical sounds, called truck. Okay. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Sorry for boring you. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Just the appearances, Maris Ayin. It appears to be bored. I'm not bored.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to hear that. It doesn't look like it.
You see same everything on air, or you just.
Some of it I keep the same, and some of it I take different. And on my witness. This I learned 2 years ago, not last week. Good question.
See you next year.
Have a wonderful Shabbos.
First one I like.
What?
111. I mean, not this part, but.
Oh, yeah, 11. Wait, 11?
Like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But not this. Later about the ones that like don't get exactly. That's the first one. Thank you so much. I'm